So I think the time is up and we are ready for a session about VuFind projects. Thank you for attending this session. I will be here in the room, and then my colleagues, Peter Murray and Deborah Deneau, Peter is in Ohio and Deborah is in Ottawa. So this will be the group here. And we are going to tell you about, because Index Data has the past 3+ years done VuFind development for different customers, different sizes of customers, and customers with different needs. We started out doing primarily FOLIO solutions, but now a FOLIO solution for our own customers. So VuFind on top of FOLIO for our own customers, but also we have done work for EBSCO customers who wanted a FOLIO installation. And this project, the most recent and the one I'm most familiar with, it's a Koha project. So let me see here. So today we will let's see if I can do like this too. So we will tell you about some different projects we have done, and not just on top of an ILS, but also on ReShare, which is an ILS system. So we will try to cover a variety, and yeah, so it will be a little bit browsing, but please, if you have any more particular questions, then please ask them as well. So we will present for you some of our latest projects and talk about how we typically do a VuFind project, how we start engaging with a new customer, how we work together with them, how we define the requirements, and how we make sure that we have this user acceptance testing going on in a rolling process as we develop. And you will also, we will give you some of our catch up on best practices and our experience on how to do VuFind projects as we do. See if I can see it. So program for this session will be a walkthrough of the case story of for the Swedish Performing Arts Agency, because that case use case is quite interesting, because they had their collection in several different databases, and they were also in the midst of converting, so migrating Atom and Primus data from one older system to another system, and so a lot of things in flux for them. And Deborah will talk more specifically about VuFind and ReShare. And finally, Peter, who is our VuFind developer, will tell you about how he approaches projects like this from the development side. So the Swedish Performing Arts Agency is not just complicated with that it has 4 different data sources. It's also 3 different institutions having one side, and you know, officially they are still 3 independent institutions, but they work together and they wanted a shared site. And the 3 institutions are the Music and Theatre Library of Sweden, It's the Center for Swedish Folk Music and Jazz Research, and it is the Swedish Museum of Performing Arts. I went and visited them, and it is so awesome to see their collection and see all their, old and rare materials and how it is organized, and music materials. Most of you probably are familiar with. They are cataloged a bit. They are difficult. It's not so out of the box work to do a VuFind installation when we are talking about music cataloged materials. But our VuFind developers, Ian Hardy and Peter Murray, they were just pulling up their sleeves and, of course, going to this task as any other. So they are right now the Performing Arts Agency has an existing OPAC, and that is to be replaced with a VuFind. And all the functionality their patrons has when accessing their current OPAC, of course, they want to have exactly similar functionality. They had worked for about a year, maybe a little longer, with their own implementation of VuFind. So they actually had some hands-on experience with VuFind. So in our conversation with them, then we were not to start from the very scratch, because they knew they had worked directly with VuFind themselves, but they had also ran into some of the problems where they were not able to get any further with how they wanted the functionality to be. So in a way, that was made them to a customer who was familiar with VuFind and also knew about VuFind under the hood, but also could point us directly to, here is where we got stuck, and that quickly made us on track on some of these things. We established a working team, so we are typical 4 people from their side, and then Peter and I. And we meet twice a month, and it is good to have these regular meetings because, and we did meeting notes, etc. So we are making sure that we constantly have the talks aligned and the requirement aligned, and are not having any misunderstandings. They started out writing up their requirements and also with focus on where they knew it was difficult. Of course, also defining how they wanted to have the result list displayed, how they wanted the record displayed to be. So they did their written up document, but Index Data has also created a VuFind intake form, which we are giving to all our customers who want us to do a VuFind solution. And the intake form help us to get the requirements in a standardized way. So then it's also easier for the developers, because some of the things will be very, very similar, or some of the asks will be very, very similar to what we have done for other FOLIO customers or ReShare customers and others, but some will be very specific for this new customer. So it's for us a way to make a project like this more efficient, and also for the developers to maybe attack the task in a well-known form. Together with the team, then we used a Trello board. Trello, you're probably familiar with is if you have not worked in Trello, it's super easy to get used to do it. Add cards, and the idea is that it's not just me as a PO on this work, but it was also the SMEs, the subject matter experts from the customer, who could fill in cards and making sure that we did not talk about things and then forgot again, but everything was captured and put into these tracking columns where we can easily see what do we need to do, what is in refinement, what is dev ready for Peter to pick up, what has he in progress, and finally the test, and then things are done. Index data do also have our own Jira, so these Trello cards are also captured into Jira, and we need to have it in index data's Jira system for coordinating this project with other projects and making sure that everything is manageable for us internally. We did also a kind of an overview for the whole project, and in this case we received data from 4 sources. So we took the largest chunk of records, what was coming out of the Koha database, and called that block 1. And making sure the result list and the display of records on all the Koha records, which were mark records, that was looking as specified. And then we took the next block 2, that was the data coming out of Crosstreth. That was Dublin core formatted records. And again, making sure that when we had added these records, we also had result list and the record display looking as specified. And then block 3, which were planned to be included in this work this autumn. Here, the migration of the 2 databases, Atom and Primus, we learned 3 weeks ago, is delayed. And it is so delayed, so it's not. We are not gonna get the data until spring next year. But we have decided we are going live as we talked about original. So we will go live with block 1 and block 2, and then we must pick up the work again, and do block 3 when we can get the data. And that's how real life is. It doesn't. We can. Sometimes things are. We cannot do anything until we get the data. And if data is not being able to be exported and delivered, then we need to adjust the timeline, and that's how it is. We put in some milestones, and that is of course for always to take the temperature. Where are we? Are we following the timeline? Are we? Is something slipping? What we did is that we have this development environment where the SMEs can test immediately when Peter has done an addition or a code change or fixed something. And that gives, again, quick turnaround and a pleasant way to work, because the developers are not, has it still in mind. I just did this and now I get the feedback and we can quickly fix it. So having a shared test and development environment, that's it's one of the things I'm super happy about. And this is, kind of a timeline showing you this project. And we are going live in November with block 1 and block 2. And then there will be a second to go live when we finally get the block 3 data as well. So now I will give the word to Deborah, and then you can continue talk about ReShare.
Thanks, Charlotte. I'll just, when I get to the end of a slide, I'll just say, you know, flip, and then you can flip it to the next one. So ReShare and VuFind a little bit different than the FOLIO experience in several ways. So VuFind is a discovery tool for many libraries versus a single library, because ReShare implementations are consortial implementations. We have anywhere from a small group like TRLN that have 4 libraries in it to the Palsy implementation. I see you're on here, Carl, that are, I think, well over 70, close to 80 libraries in that now. So it's a different, it becomes a different tool, and there become different needs for consortia when we're planning and completing a VuFind implementation as part of their ReShare implementation. To be honest, until recently, most of the VuFind implementations were pretty much out of the box. We didn't do a lot of customization. We didn't have the VuFind intake form. It was kind of almost left to the last at the end. Oh, we better rush and get VuFind together. ReShare Consortia chose their logo, their color choices for their banner. They could, you know, tell us the type and order of search facets to give, but there wasn't a lot of extra work done for VuFind itself. And so it was pretty straightforward and didn't require a lot of planning. Minor customizations were added. So using VuFind sits in between ReShare and the backend shared inventory, which we call Reservoir. So there's ways that the data in Reservoir can be looked at and manipulated when it's indexed into VuFind to change the behavior in VuFind to expose buttons, to hide buttons, etc. So using that ability, we were able to, you know, hide the request button if all the items we knew for a particular title at all the libraries weren't requestable. So that way we wouldn't get false requests being submitted into the ILL system. So those were the kind of things that we had done sort of historically. And then we had an implementation for Minitex, Minlinks, their brand name, in 2024 that changed that, because they were a little bit different than our previous implementations in that they were a public library consortia, or a consortia dealing with mostly public libraries. And as part of their project, they had specific enhancements required for VuFind that needed to be scoped out. If you could flip that to the next page, Charlotte.
Yeah.
Thank you. So many of these requirements were specified in their initial contract, and others were specified based on some grant work to add some additional features post go live after they had been up and running on the system. So the implementation analyst for Minitex, who happened to be me, but I'll just try to leave it general for the presentation. I worked with the ReShare developers and the DevOps team to scope out these requirements and what would be done to provide these new features as part of the regular ReShare implementation process. So we do that as part of the ReShare implementation. It is because VuFind sits in between ReShare and Reservoir, there are DevOps components to setting it up that certain staff work on. And then there's also the developer side. If an API or something needs to be exposed from one of the ReShare modules to VuFind, so VuFind can act on it, that's when we bring developers in to work on that. So that's all done as part of the regular implementation process. And we have a Jira board in the OLF Jira system that we do all the ReShare development tickets in. And then for any of the DevOps work, we use our internal index data Jira board, but they're cross-referenced, so we know the work that needs to be done for a given sprint or a given release. Each requirement and how it would be addressed was run by the team at Minitex for their approval. So before we had obviously worked out what their requirements were, and then we ran it by them for their approval so that we didn't develop something and then go, oops, that's not what they wanted. And so once development was complete, these new features were demoed for approval. So ReShare has a test environment that we do alpha testing, beta testing with. And so when it gets to the point where we can say, okay, we're going to wrap up this release and this is the VuFind integration with it, we have a little test environment that we can demo and show the changes. And so that became an iterative process, because we would demo it. They would say, oh, this needs to be tweaked. So we would change it, and then we would demo it again. And then finally, once we got their approval, we knew that we could plan to do a production upgrade with the new changes. Now, some of these development of these new features for this one customer was also done with the ReShare community in mind on 2 levels. So, and I'll speak to this a little bit because something came to mind in some of the work that we were doing. So we wanted to make sure that what was being implemented for one customer could be used by other customers. So even though Minitex as a consortia came to us and said, you know, we need all these features, the features were based on functionality in ReShare that other ReShare customers could potentially use. They don't have to, it's not a you must use this, but it was there. We also wanted to ensure that there was a mechanism in place to allow for these feature configurations without having separate configurations for each consortia. So as part of this work that we've been doing and maturing our VuFind enhancement and development, we've created what's called a generic ReShare module as part of VuFind so that we can put in all these different feature sections and have it roll out, and then we can just do minor tweaks to a given consortial's ReShare module versus for VuFind, versus having to create their own one from scratch each time that we need to either update, upgrade, or install a new ReShare consortia. If you could flip. Flip to the next. Yeah, all right. So for Minitex, some of the initial new features included a more robust My Account section where patrons would be able to see their active requests, historical requests, and be able to submit a request via a blank form into ReShare if they could not find what they were looking for in VuFind. So in terms of the integration with VuFind on this level, VuFind did have a Your Account section that could be linked to, in FOLIO's case, an ILS, and it's much more integrated with the patron database and can provide information for searches and requests and loans. It's a little bit different with ReShare because ReShare doesn't have a patron database. We don't we only store minimal data about the patron with each request that they submit. So there's an API that talks between ReShare and VuFind to populate the Your Account. So there was a bit of work on our development side and then a bit of work on our DevOps side to create this My Account feature for Minitex and enhance what was there as part of the base VuFind product. I will say that one of the things that we did miss in initially rolling this out a few months ago with their go live is they had a specific use case for the way that their patrons authenticated to VuFind to place requests that was different than our other consortia, that academic consortia that often use SSO and many different methods of single sign-on to authenticate. And we didn't account for that. So that's something that we ran into a block when trying to roll this out to our other consortia because their SSO didn't get the information we needed consistently to bring the patron to this view. So we've been working on that, and we've got that dedicated in the beginning of October to get that issue rolled out so that we can roll out this feature to our other ReShare customers. If you could flip. And so one of the other things that Minitex requested was the ability to submit if the patron could not find what they are searching for in VuFind, that they could submit it as part of a blank request form. And so These request forms had to accommodate both loan requests and copy requests because we introduced non-returnables as part of ReShare in the latest release. And so we were able to work with the Open URL resolver and determine that if the patron chose a loan, certain fields would be required and highlighted, other ones would be grayed out, likewise copy. So we were able to do some interesting work to ensure that when the request information was submitted into ReShare, we got the correct service type and all of that to allow the request to go down its proper workflow model. And if you could flip again. And then we're just finishing up and ready to package up the next release that integrates some further ReShare features into VuFind, including the ability to show a library's active request limit. So at the top now, we've got the My Requests and the active request limit per library, for the patron's library, and then their active request count. So there's once a patron hits their active request limit, we have the ability to prevent them from placing further requests into the system, so they don't just keep getting an unfilled message because they hit their limit. And then we've now introduced the ability for patrons to cancel their own requests. So again, interacting with the ReShare backend to get the information to be able to determine what requests can be canceled. It's not a blanket like, oh, I'll just cancel the request that's already closed. Like, we know that only certain requests in certain states can be canceled. So that work was done and will be rolled out very soon for Minitex. One of the other things that I wanted to add, in addition to the integration with ReShare and VuFind, is that we've also developed and worked with both Atlas, the Iliad product, and with Rapido to have them be able to search the VuFind search API to find material that's requestable in ReShare and be able to submit requests from Iliad or Rapido into the ReShare consortial system, and then is managed by the incoming tenant or library where that request came from. So we've got that kind of integration going, which is also very cool. So that's some of the other development that we've done. I think that's it for me. Yeah.
Then it's you, Peter.
Great. Thanks, Deborah and Charlotte. So I just have 4 points that I wanted to cover about our hosting and our development strategies. First, a mono repo for source code control, then talk a little bit about shared elements between all of our installations, then our use of feature flags to turn on new functionality without impacting other clients. And then finally, our use of staging and production, both in our servers and our source code branches. Next slide, if you would please, Charlotte. So we're hosting all of our, so maybe backing up for a second, we use a DevOps philosophy for our hosting. All of our code and configuration are in Git repositories and version controlled, so that we know when changes have been made, who made the changes, and why the changes were made. This also is part of our disaster recovery strategy. If a server should fail, we have one command that we can use to bring that server back up again. And we use Ansible as a orchestration language to take the the code and the configuration in our Git repositories and turn those into running servers. So for all of our VuFind clients, we have a single Git repository, and that's the mono repo structure of development. And this one large repository has directories for configuration, for our code modules, and for our themes. This is one way of structuring a multi installation VuFind set of servers. One could also conceive of having separate Git repositories for each library. We chose not to do that primarily because of the way VuFind is structured. Allows us to separate out one library's configuration, modules, and theme into a separate directory already. And as we'll see in the next slide, some of those elements are shared between libraries. So we have one place where our shared code is, and that sits beside all of the library-specific places. Another part of our philosophy for VuFind is to have each installation targeting one version of VuFind. And so those libraries, configuration, module, and theme are overlaid onto a stock VuFind installation. Again, another way that one might conceive of running FOLIO or running VuFind is to be right up against the dev branch in the upstream repository and put all of your changes into your own branches of that single VuFind repository. We find that this structure, where each configuration has its own targeted VuFind version, allows us to keep our VuFind installations very clean. Never is it the case that we are modifying the stock VuFind code, and this structure of overlaying these directories onto a stock VuFind installation reinforces that. So all of our changes, each library's change, is in its own configuration, its own module, or its own theme. And again, we use Ansible to manage that. The Ansible playbook first pulls the VuFind source code at a particular version, installs that on the server, and then the playbook overlays the configuration directory, overlays the module directory, and overlays the theme directory on top of that stock installation. Next slide, please. So what we've found over the years is VuFind does very well with a shared code module, but with separate themes. Initially, we tried to have common elements of a theme in a shared theme, but the themes were changing so much. If you're familiar with VuFind, the PHTML templates were changing so much for each client's specific needs that it wasn't working out to have a common theme. That common theme is still there in our configuration. And by that, I mean that a library-specific theme is inheriting the shared VuFind index data VuFind theme, and that theme is inheriting the stock Bootstrap theme from VuFind itself. And so we have that common theme layer in there, but at this point, it's mostly a pass-through. There are a couple things that we have in the common theme that we use for easing our development. But for our production installations, that pass through, that middle theme of the index data theme is really just a pass through. Contrast that with the code changes that we have in a shared module. One of the things that is that many of our clients asked us for are some changes to electronic reserves, where we are adding columns for, I think, department, and we're adding another column. And we found that pretty much all of our VuFind clients were asking us for this. And so we put that into a shared common module that all of our VuFind installations inherit from. So same thing as the theme. There's each library has their own specific theme, and that inherits from the index data shared common module, and that module inherits from the VuFind code itself. And that allows us to not copy this code that is in common into all of the libraries. It allows us to keep it in one place. And when we make changes to that code, it's changed. When we fix bugs, it's fixed everywhere. We're not having to copy that bug fix into each individual library's installation. Next slide. So related to this is our use of feature flags. These are settings that we add to the VuFind configuration, and in this little snippet of code, you see it at the bottom. There's an index data section, and below that a configuration option, use holdings visible equals true. So this is a feature flag that is turning on some code from the shared module that is doing something differently. So if you can, even if you don't understand coding, you can kind of see that this section of code here, we have a module called get holding that has this same function signature as the upstream VuFind. The first thing that this function does is look into the configuration and see and get the use holding visible flag. And if that flag is true, then it executes its own replacement code. If that flag is not true, then the else statement kicks in, and we simply call the parent function, in this case, the VuFind stock code with those same function parameters, and just return that. So quite often this is used as a stopgap for code that is being contributed upstream. In this case of the use visible holdings, this was some code that we developed that made the holdings statements visible for FOLIO holdings that had no items attached. And this is a difference between the way VuFind conceptualizes holdings and the way that FOLIO conceptualizes holdings. FOLIO has 3 layers. It has the instance, the holdings, the items. VuFind's view of the world, it only has instances and items. And so in cases where there wasn't information at the item level in FOLIO, but there was information in the holdings level at FOLIO, it wasn't visible in VuFind. And so the code that we wrote made that information visible in VuFind. And this was code that our own clients were asking for, and that we knew we wanted to contribute upstream so that everybody can make use of it. Back to that earlier philosophical decision, our VuFind installations are targeted at very specific VuFind versions, code versions. We're not directly tracking the dev branch of VuFind development. And so in order to have this code actually work for our clients at older versions of VuFind, we use this feature flag concept. So if this library wants that holdings information visible, we turn on this flag that overrides how this function operates. This VuFind function operates. It runs our own code. In fact, the same code that we submitted upstream, it's just running it earlier. And when this library, we upgrade their VuFind version to the version of VuFind that has this code in it, we'll turn off this feature flag, because that parent : get holding that is in the new version of VuFind will have this code in it. So we can turn off this flag, and eventually, when all of our clients have upgraded their versions of VuFind, we can take out this feature flag because it won't be needed anymore. So this is how we've started to handle code that we're contributing upstream, but we want to use right away. We don't want our libraries to have to wait to take advantage of that code. Next slide, please. So lastly, just a few words about our staging and production servers. While everything is in that one monolithic code repository, we have separate branches for staging and production. We also have separate servers for staging and production. And so, like Charlotte was describing, we'll use the staging server to show what it is that we want to put on the production server and get the library to sign off on it. And then we cherry pick, which is a Git source code repository term of art. We cherry pick those commits from the staging branch to the production branch, and then we run our Ansible playbook to deploy that version onto the library's production server. So this is kind of the evolution of how index data works with VuFind. We have the mono repo of source code control with branches, separate branches for staging and production. We have a shared code module, but separate themes for each library. We use feature flags to write new functionality and turn that functionality on for specific libraries while we're getting that new code accepted into VuFind itself. And finally, we have separate production and staging servers for each of our libraries to allow libraries to see what it is that we're going to do before we put it into production. And with that, I think we've finished the prepared parts of our talk, and we're ready for questions, Charlotte.
Yes. So, any questions for Peter or Deborah or me? Or...
And I don't see any in the chat yet.
That's good. Okay. Yeah.
I'm Bodil from the National Library of Sweden. I noticed, Charlotte, in your presentation, you had one slide with requirements from VuFind, Swedish music agency, dealing with Scandinavian characters, I think.
Yes.
And
yes.
I was just wondering what happens with requirements that perhaps should be forwarded to the general VuFind development.
Yeah.
Or what happens with those?
Yeah.
Or do you just fix it for every customer?
I will repeat the question so we get it on the recording as well. So Bodil from National Library of Sweden noticed that we had a Trello card about the Scandinavian special characters A, Ö, O, and something we had to fix for Musikverket. And what happens? Will these this code? How will this be contributed back to VuFind develop code base? And Peter, that's probably a question for you to answer.
Yeah. So I'm going to go out on a limb a little bit because this is an area that I wasn't familiar with before starting the music work project, and that is that the Swedish character set has 29 characters, not 26, which is fascinating. Something in the world that I didn't know. And so the VuFind code itself is fine with that. What we found was that the index rules in Solar, the full text search engine underneath FOLIO or underneath VuFind, needed some special configurations in order to properly search and sort the characters 27, 28, and 29. And so that isn't necessarily a fix in VuFind. It's something that one needs to be aware of when working with the Swedish alphabet. And Ari from he's in Finland. Forgot his institution. Yes, has been very helpful in sharing that knowledge with others. And so what I probably will end up doing is when I have it all sorted out, I will write a wiki page on the VuFind wiki that says if you're implementing VuFind with the Swedish or Finnish character set, here are the things that you need to do in order to make that work. It kind of an oh, by the way, of course, if you're in that country, I imagine an alphabet with 29 characters is not a surprise to you. But for anyone that is a surprise, or if you want to make VuFind work with those alphabets, here are the things that you need to add to the Solar configuration in order to make that work. So that will probably be my contribution back to the community, is reflecting Ari's advice to me and documenting that for others.
Thank you. Other questions?
I see one in Slack. For upgrades to new versions of VuFind, how does this method of deployment work with the customizations that have already been done with the current VuFind library? And that's a very good question. What we end up doing is is a three-way merge. If you can visualize kind of for instance, the stock version of VuFind at 9.1.1 and the stock version of VuFind at 10, and then in the middle there's the library specific changes. And so a three-way merge is we ask this program to look at the changes between all three of these and bring together a unified view of what that looks like. And so for this primarily comes into place with configuration files and with theme templates. And what we do is we create one big patch that is all of the changes between the old version of VuFind, the new version of VuFind. We apply that to the library's configuration, and then we resolve any conflicts with the three-way merge algorithm. So it's mostly automatic. Sometimes we do get those merge conflicts, and we have to view them in the three-way merge. And then at the end, we save that to the library's new version of VuFind in the mono repo. Yes, from 7 to 10 is a large jump that we are doing for you, Lynn, this fall.
So to be mindful about your time, I think that was the last questions. Thank you so much for attending this session. And
thank you, everybody. Bye.
bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.